What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. I am your co-host, Marcus, as always, and I am not joined by my other co-host, Mason, who is on vacation, enjoying a little fam time. Buddy, I hope you enjoy yourself, but I am so ready for you to be back. I'm trying to juggle everything here on the First and Long College Football Show by myself, but we've got some big matchups. College football stops for no one. Week 5, ready or not, here we come. Thank you so much for tuning in to the First and Long College Football Show. First of all, we've only been at it for a couple of years here. This is our second college football season. We're really enjoying it. Me and Mason are a couple of lifelong college football fans, and I have just really enjoyed getting to know a lot of you guys in the comment section, through the channel, all the different fan bases from all across the country. First and Long is a Power 4 college football show. We talk coast to coast about contenders, big matchups, all that good stuff. And so we've got content being posted literally almost every single day throughout the week. Live shows on Sunday night, Tuesday night. We've got a betting show on Thursday, real quick, 30-minute betting show every Thursday. And then Saturday nights after the football games, we've got an overreaction show, or we like to call it the overreaction show. We're reacting to everything that we just saw literally minutes ago as the games ended. That one is a lot of fun, and we hope that you will join, and I hope that you'll consider hitting the subscribe button and coming and hanging out with us, because we have a really good time. The matchup that we're going to talk about right now, the Louisville Cardinals are visiting Touchdown Jesus, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame is a 5.5-point favorite. Last I saw, this number, it has been moving. Over-under set at 47.5. Louisville is a football team that, in our rankings here on the First and Long College Football Show, we've had, I think, adequately ranked. And the AP poll is a little behind us as far as, being high on Louisville, but there hasn't really been a game that you point at and say, this is the reason why we think Louisville is what they are. Austin Peay, Jacksonville State, Georgia Tech. Those are the opponents so far this year. Won last week 31-19, and I think some people definitely watched that Louisville Georgia Tech game. I certainly did. So it's just a limited sample size that I think that the vast amount of college football fans have gotten to see Louisville. Lots more eyes will be on the game this weekend, no doubt about it. This one will kick off at 3:30 Eastern. I'm really, and I've got the graphic wrong here on this page, y'all, because I made this yesterday and the line's already moved, as I said. So check your local bookie or, betting window, whatever. But this one is coming down as far as the spread and up as far as the total right now. So you've got movement up. This one started closer to 46.5. And Notre Dame a bigger favorite, and I guess money's coming in on Louisville to cover that spread there, and then people are betting the over. So that's something good to know this early in the week. So that way you know whether to go bet it now, wait, let the number come to you, whatever you've got in mind. And I'm going to give you my prediction here in just a minute. Let's learn a little bit about Louisville. Tyler Shough makes his way over to Louisville after. He's been a college football journeyman, right? He's been around the block. Not a super young fella. And you see there on the graphic there, third time's the charm. It has been so far this season. This is Tyler Shough's, so far, knock on wood, so far this has been the best season of his career. 52 of 76 so far, 850 yards, 68.4%, 68.4% completion, 11.2 average. That's very high there. 8 touchdowns, no interceptions so far this year. Look, nobody's ever had any complaints about Tyler Shough when he's really, when he's been on the football field. Nobody's had any kind of complaints about his play. Seems like everybody's pretty in love with everything that he does while he's out there. But as you can see from the stats that I put on your screen, and if you can't see it, I'm sorry, I do my best, but He hasn't played more than 7 games in a season ever in his career, and that goes all the way back to 2018, where he played in 3 games, which I don't think he was a starter. But 2019, 5 games played, 2020, 7 games played, 21, 4, 22, 7, 23, 4, right? So this guy's got some issues as far as, staying healthy and things. He's just got to get out of bounds. He's got to do everything he can to get out of bounds. He's been Wally pipped before where he got hurt and then somebody stole his starting job as well. So, that necessarily wasn't, he was out the whole season or something like that. So it's been a journey for Tyler Shough. And I've sung his praises more than I haven't over the last few years. And I think he's in a really, really good situation here in this Louisville offense. And we'll look at some of the statistics here for Louisville. Offensive scoring this year, 47.3 points per game, right? That's good for 12th in the country. Passing yards per game, 308. That's outstanding. 18th in the country. Yards per pass, 10.5. That's good for 6th in the country. Very, very good. Rush yards per game, 194.3. That's 37th. And rush yards per rush, 6.41. That's outstanding at 9. So pretty much, in the top 25, basically in every category that you can imagine offensively. Only allowed 2 sacks this season. So this offensive line it was completely revamped. Just absolutely completely revamped. Monroe Mills, you get from Texas Tech. He comes in the transfer portal. Probably can thank Tyler Shough partially for that, right? Old teammate there. Pete Nigra comes over from Northern Illinois. You already had Austin Collins on hand there. And then Jonathan Mendoza comes over from Yale after putting up some unbelievable numbers there at Yale. But it's always hit or miss in this transfer portal stuff, how the chemistry works, how these players mesh together. It seems, so far anyway, as though Louisville has hit on these guys that they've got through the transfer portal there on the offensive line, and it's paid dividends, as you can see from those offensive numbers there. Louisville has got a whole stable of young, I don't even know how this happens, but they've got a whole stable of young freshman backs. And you've got a little bit of veteran, presence with Maurice Turner, which I think he might be banged up for this one, but he hasn't played since week 2, but he's a junior. But these freshmen are really, really impressive. They've been really good so far, and it just makes me think that this offensive line is obviously doing what they need to be doing as well. Isaac Brown, 16 carries, 173 yards, 10.8 average, right? This is an 18-year-old kid. Duke Watson, freshman, 12 carries, 141 yards, 11.8. Kewan Brown, 126 yards, 6.6 yards per rush. 6.6, 11.8, and 10.8 yards per rush for those guys, and 5 touchdowns between them. And Maurice Turner's got a touchdown as well. And that's not even to mention Donald Chaney, who, had 478 yards for Miami last year. So you've got a whole stable, just a whole big room of running backs that can play, that this team feels good about. The freshmen, you always worry about them as far as like picking up pass rush and things like that. But for the most part, running back is a position where a freshman can come in and play and contribute right away most of the time. Ja'Cory Brooks at wide receiver, that's been the go-to guy here. I've heard through the grapevine that Colin Lacey is going to be making his way back for this one. I am glued to the TV because this is an opportunity for Louisville to prove something right here. And I watched them last week, but this is a chance to make a statement here. And Louisville did that last year, won this game 33-20, right? But that one was at home. If you can get Colin Lacey back and going and incorporate him in with Ja'Cory Brooks, the former Alabama wide receiver, and get him going with Chris Bell, I just think that, and Jaden Thompson as well, for that matter, I think this can be a really, really good offense. And I trust Coach. This is an offensive-minded guy, right? Played the position of quarterback here at Louisville. Braum knows what it takes to have a successful offense. I knew that whenever he was at Purdue and I saw his offenses there. And they were, busy upsetting Ohio State every couple of years, right? So I'm really, really in love with the idea of this offense. I don't think that we've seen the best of it yet, though. I really don't. I don't think that we've seen this offense really hit its stride, and this is going to be a tough game to be able to do that. I'm just going to be honest. We're going to talk Notre Dame here in just a second, but they've got one hell of a defense. And just before we move on, you see this depth chart. Anything right there in yellow, those are transfer players or true freshmen. Isn't that unbelievable? Look what the transfer portal has been able to do for Louisville whenever they've harnessed the power of it. You know, and looking at this right here makes me, want to tell Dabo Swinney, like, you're just dead wrong. You're just wrong for not taking guys in the transfer portal. It is helping teams like Louisville be able to have a good year last year and then turn right back around, and it looks like Louisville has got a really good chance to have another pop year in 2024 and compete for an ACC championship. Don't get it twisted. There ain't nobody run away with this division, or excuse me, this conference. I think Clemson has kind of snuck their way back into the conversation, but I think it's Miami and Louisville's conference to lose right now. And specifically Miami, I think Miami's ahead, but Louisville, we'll see. We got a chance to prove something right here. The Louisville defense has played really well, just as well as the offense has. If you had to go pick on one thing so far for Louisville and their defense, it's the passing defense, right? Pass yards per game allowed, 181.3. That's 44th in the country. That's not like terrible. Those are not terrible numbers necessarily, and especially considering the fact that Louisville has been leading in a lot of these football games. But I can't help but notice whenever I go back and look last week, Georgia Tech was for over 300 yards. So I'm still kind of in the middle as far as the secondary is concerned, right? I got to see, I got to see some things. And as far as this Louisville team is concerned, the defense is what I have the least amount of questions about, really. I mean, as far as like returning guys, I like the rush defense, and that's going to come in big time handy this weekend, because we all know what Notre Dame likes to do with their offense. They want to run the football, and they're coming in this thing hobbled, banged up on the offensive line, and I think that gives a huge advantage here to Louisville. You bring in some linemen through the transfer portal here defensively, some linebackers, I guess I should say, and they've done really good things for you this year. But you need you need Conga. You really need this defensive line to step up this weekend. I mean, I just stated the fact that Notre Dame has got some injuries on the offensive line, but this is a running football team, and let me tell you something. Trying to tackle Riley Leonard is like trying to catch a greased pig. I mean, it really is. It is much easier said than done. And he doesn't always make it look the prettiest or anything like that, but that guy's elusive, okay? And you're going to need this defensive line to not only fill the gaps in this football game, but you're going to need those linebackers and those edge players to set the edge, because that's exactly what Notre Dame is going to be eyeing in this one. It's going to be a big game for Renee Conga, Antonio Watts there in the linebacker room, Ashton Gelati with 9 tackles so far this year and a sack, Conga with 10 tackles so far this year. You need those guys to show up and play well in this football game. No doubt about it. I really like the linebacker room here. TJ Quinn, Stanquan Clark, they've looked great so far this year. You go in the portal and get some secondary players in Nicholson, who comes over from Illinois, to Havon. I didn't even want to try to say that name, but I'm a sucker for it. I always try it. To Marion McDonald, he's the defensive back that comes over from Tennessee. Both of those guys have played really well. The moral of the story for Louisville here is, I mean, you've hit pretty much on just every single one of these transfers, at least to my eye so far this year. We're going to see in this football game offensively what you're made of, because I said that on offense, Notre Dame likes to run the football, and that is very true. But the strength of Notre Dame's team lies on their defense. There's no doubt about that. Let's jump into that Notre Dame team. Riley Leonard. We've talked ad nauseum about Riley Leonard. And I've come to a conclusion of what's going on with Riley Leonard. And I don't know why I didn't think of this before. But Riley Leonard looks just like eerily similar to what we saw last year with Riley Leonard. And I know we didn't see him a ton. He got hurt, dealt with the injury, and that's kind of my point and what I'm getting to here. Riley Leonard spent the offseason rehabbing. He didn't spend the offseason working on arm slot or, reading coverage. I mean, I'm sure he looked at, worked on the playbook and things, but working on it, looking at a playbook and getting out there and going, getting reps with your team and things like that, those are two totally different things. And I don't think Riley Leonard has gotten any better. And it really shouldn't surprise me because he has been dealing with multiple surgeries on his ankle there. He's been busy rehabbing and trying to get healthy, and just his best ability at this point is availability. So I'm not super impressed with what I've seen from Riley Leonard. I don't want to totally give up hope on this guy. I mean, he's super athletic. I'm waiting for eventually him to be able to, throw the football and have some kind of semblance of understanding of this offense, but I just haven't seen it. 587 yards this year, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Anytime you've got a 2-to-1 interception to touchdown ratio, that's obviously not a good thing. 46 rushes, 322 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's an elusive runner. I mean, it's so hard to wrangle this guy up. I can't say it enough. He was so much fun to watch last year for for Duke. I was just thinking in my head against Clemson. That was definitely the game that sticks out in my mind for last season. But this Notre Dame wide receiver room, and we're going to talk about it here in just a second, but it's been totally revamped. And we haven't even gotten to see what those guys are made of because there hasn't been anybody that's been able to get them the football, unfortunately. Offensive line, I talked about being banged up. This is about as banged up gets this early in this college football season. And this was already a group that was only returning one starter from last year, right? You had multiple guys move on. A couple of them go to the NFL. Some greats go to the NFL, right? It looks like, I guess, Billy Shrout and Ashton Craig are going to be out for the season, is from what I understand. Charles Jagusa, he went out in the last game he went down, and I don't think that he'll be playing in this football game. So, I mean, you're going to have some really, really inexperienced young guys on this offensive line for this football game. And obviously that doesn't bode well for Notre Dame in this situation. Vegas has got Notre Dame favored for some reason or another in this one. I don't see it. I'll just be honest with you. I'm going to get to my prediction here in a second. I just don't really see it. Unless Notre Dame is just going to be able to run it down the throat of Louisville and keep away, or get some interceptions and some turnovers on defense. We'll talk about that defense here in just a second. It's unbelievable. All right, back to the wide receivers. I love Chris Mitchell, Jaden Greathouse, Jaden Thomas. I love all these guys. Bo Collins is the leading receiver this year. And you got wild card in that room, Jordan Faison. Are these guys? I don't even know what to make of these guys at this point. All these numbers that you see on the screen, this is numbers from last year. I don't know what to make of these guys because I mean they haven't even been put to the test. Nobody can get them the football. So I think the wide receiver room for Notre Dame is decent, but they're not getting reps. They're not helping this team win because they're not being enabled to do so. I don't know. We'll see. Something's got to change if Notre Dame, wants to win the rest of their football games this season and be talked about possibly in a college football playoff. I don't think they'll make it now, but who knows? Who knows what can happen? All right, let's talk about this defense. Jordan Botelho, I'll go ahead and say this right off the top. He went down in the last game. I don't think that he'll be playing. You'll see R.J. Oben out there, who was more of a rotational guy. I think you'll see him play more in this game than just rotating. I think he'll be in there for a good bit of the game. You do have several other guys that you can kind of rotate in and out there. But Howard Cross, Riley Mills, those are the main attractions there on the defensive line, and they do not disappoint. Right? This is this is a really, really, really nice defensive line here. 9 tackles so far for Cross this year, 2 sacks. This is what you've got to look out for if you're Louisville. This is, I think, one of the ways that this game can melt down on you, and the rug can kind of fly out from under your feet if you're Louisville. Howard Cross can take over a football game now. So if you let him, and this offensive line isn't up to the test, it's going to be really, really tough. Riley Mills and Howard Cross will absolutely make life a living heck for you. So I do think that is a path for Notre Dame to be able to win this football game, is just being so disruptive that Louisville's not able to establish anything offensively. And in that case, I think it would be a really low scoring game. But and then the secondary, which I like the linebackers, guys. I don't want to skip over them and act like I don't like Kaiser or Bowen. Kaiser is a leader on this defense, right? 22 tackles this season, really good. This Notre Dame team has 9 sacks so far this year. I talked about it earlier. Louisville has given up 2 sacks this year. So what's going to give? If Notre Dame's going to win this football game, I think they need to sack Tyler Shook 3 times. That's what I think, and I think they need to cause a turnover too. Otherwise, I think Louisville wins this football game. But one of the guys that can cause one of these turnovers within just the matter of one throw is Xavier Watts or Benjamin Watson, among others, in this secondary. This is a really, really nice group. Xavier Watts has got a chance to be All-American candidate, right? Having a pretty good season, 16 tackles, an interception, a couple of pass deflections, and a forced fumble so far this season. And Morrison is a guy that you really just want to try to avoid throwing at him. And he's got 2 pass deflections this year, 11 tackles coming up in the run game there, helping out some. But Rod Hurd is a nice piece that kind of just fell in your lap, right? Coming over from Northwestern. He's got 12 tackles so far this year, been really, really solid. And then Jordan Clark has been a guy that I've had my eye on since the offseason. And I'm looking up some of his numbers. 4 tackles so far, a pass deflection this year. So, look, this is a secondary that is not to be trifled with. Absolutely. Now, getting Colin Lacey back would definitely help, but Shook is going to have to beware, and I think that Louisville has got to figure out a way to manufacture some type of rush game in this situation here. You can't be one-dimensional and predictable against this defense. You're going to have to mix things up. You're going to have to be able to run the ball successfully, and nobody's really been able to do that to Notre Dame so far this year. Now, granted, I don't know that there has been a better offense that Notre Dame has played this year either. So take from that what you will. We're still early in the football season. I'll be very quick with my prediction here. I already put money on Louisville on the money line. I think Louisville wins this football game just like they did last year. They won this thing 33-20. I think this is a hampered and hurt and injured Notre Dame team coming into this one. We already had questions about the offensive line to start the season. They were looking good. Guys go down with season-ending injuries. It's going to cause some depth concerns. I feel like Louisville is healthy going into this situation. They've struck gold for the most part in the transfer portal. And if I'm going to bet the over-under in this football game, which I'm not going to, I would bet the over just on principle of the fact that this is set so low. But it looks like that's what everybody else is doing. Be careful following the public. I got the Louisville Cards. I think they're one of the best teams in the ACC. That's yet to be proven. This is a chance to prove that exactly. But I'm betting on the Louisville Cardinals, a team that I've been high on since the offseason, to get the win here in Notre Dame against the Fighting Irish.